Hello, brothers, and welcome to Sigma Old Man channel. The saddest thing about betrayal is that it never comes from your enemies. That's the brutal truth about trust. It's not the outsiders, the haters, or the rivals who do the most damage. It's the ones you let in, the ones who smile to your face while sharpening their knives behind your back. And if there's one group that knows this lesson all too well, it's Sigma males. Here's a fact. Studies show that betrayal hits hardest when it comes from someone we least expect. And Sigma males, they walk through life with a quiet strength, minding their business, offering loyalty without demands, so when they get stabbed in the back, it's almost always by those they once trusted. Why? Because people see their independence as a challenge, their silence as an invitation, and their lack of neediness as a green light to betray without consequences. But here's the kicker. Sigma males don't just get betrayed. They get betrayed strategically, not out of desperation, but out of calculation. The people around them see their detachment and think he won't care anyway. They see their self-sufficiency and assume he doesn't need me, so why not? And before the Sigma knows it, someone he once trusted is treating his loyalty like a disposable napkin. So why does this happen over and over again? Why do the very people Sigma males trust end up being the ones who betray them the most? The answers will shock you, but one thing's for sure, after this, you'll never look at trust the same way again. Number one, they don't play the victim, which makes betrayals worse. When most people get betrayed, they make a scene. They cry, seek revenge, or rally a support group to shame the traitor. Sigma males, they don't do any of that. They take the hit, process it internally, and walk away like nothing happened. No drama, no theatrics, no desperate attempts to make the betrayer feel guilty. And that's exactly why the betrayal stings even more. A backstabber expects a reaction. They want to feel powerful, to see their victim crumble, to know they had an impact, but when they betray a Sigma male, all they get is silence. No anger, no begging, no emotional outburst, just a cold, detached disappearance. At first, they might think they won. He didn't even fight back. Must not have mattered to him, but that's where they're dead wrong. Sigma males feel betrayal just like anyone else, but they refuse to give their enemies the satisfaction of knowing it. This lack of reaction drives the betrayer insane. They start overanalyzing. Did I not matter to him at all? Was I just another temporary person in his life? And then the real pain sets in. See, when you betray an alpha, you get war. When you betray a beta, you get endless complaints and passive-aggressive pity parties. But when you betray a Sigma, you get nothing. Just an eerie, empty silence that leaves the betrayer questioning their own existence. And here's where it gets even worse. Sigma males don't do revenge. They do irrelevance. They don't destroy their enemies. They make them forgettable. They don't need to expose the betrayer or seek justice. Instead, they erase them from their lives like they never existed. That kind of punishment is worse than any form of retaliation because it leaves the betrayer with only one thing to deal with: themselves. And for most people, that's the scariest punishment of all. Number two, most people can't handle loyalty without control. Loyalty is a tricky thing. Most people don't actually want a loyal friend or partner. They want loyalty on their terms. They want someone who sticks by their side and follows their lead. But Sigma males, they don't follow anyone. They can be fiercely loyal, but that loyalty comes with one condition: no control. And for people who thrive on power, that's a deal breaker. At first, these controlling types see the Sigma as an asset, someone reliable, independent, and not overly demanding. But then they realize something infuriating. They can't own him. They can't manipulate him with guilt, fear, or social pressure. They can't make him bend to their will like everyone else. The Sigma will be there for them, but not because they say so, only because he chooses to be. That's where the frustration begins. They start testing him, pushing boundaries, seeing if they can get him to submit in small ways. Maybe they demand unnecessary favors, expect blind obedience, or try to guilt trip him into playing by their rules. But the Sigma, he doesn't bite. He helps when it makes sense, but the moment control enters the equation, he distances himself. And that drives control freaks insane, so they lash out. Maybe it's a subtle betrayal, like turning others against him. Maybe it's more direct, like sabotaging him or leaving when he's at his lowest. Either way, it's not about necessity, it's about proving a point. They want to break him, to make him feel the cost of resisting control. But the irony, the moment they betray a Sigma, they lose him forever. No arguments, no second chances, just permanent exile. And that's the part they never see coming. They expect anger, regret, maybe even a desperate attempt to fix things. But all they get is cold indifference. Because for a Sigma, betrayal isn't a wound, it's just confirmation that they were right to keep their distance in the first place. Number 3. They attract users who think they're an easy ride. Sigma males are like a gold mine for opportunists. They don't flex their achievements, they don't boast about their connections, and they don't put up a front to impress people. And that's exactly why manipulators target them. Unlike alphas who surround themselves with power-hungry allies or betas who cling to social approval, Sigmas move through life on their own terms. That level of independence makes them look safe, like someone who can be used without consequences. Users see a Sigma and think, here's someone who doesn't demand credit, doesn't seek validation, and doesn't expect loyalty in return. Perfect. They latch on, pretending to be friends, partners, or allies, soaking up every ounce of wisdom, support, and stability the Sigma provides. But the moment they find a more valuable connection, someone with more influence, more social clout, or more willingness to play their game, they cut ties without a second thought. It's not personal, it's just how manipulators operate. The worst part, Sigma males rarely see it coming, not because they're naive, but because they don't play these petty status games. They assume loyalty is based on mutual respect, not social advantage. So when the betrayal happens, it's not just disappointing, it's boring. They don't explode in rage or beg for explanations. They just take the loss, delete the person from their mental database, and move on like nothing happened. And that's what infuriates the betrayer the most. They wanted to matter, to leave a scar, to make the Sigma feel their absence. Instead, they realized too late that they were never as important as they thought. The Sigma doesn't chase and doesn't dwell, and certainly doesn't waste time mourning someone who was only ever there for their own gain. The user moves on thinking they won, until they realize they've lost the only person who genuinely saw them beyond their manipulative tactics. And that's a loss no amount of social climbing can replace. Number 4, they give people the benefit of the doubt for too long. Sigma males aren't naive, but they are patient. They don't trust easily, but when they decide someone is worth their time, they give them more chances than they probably should. It's not about weakness, it's about logic. They know people make mistakes, they know not everyone operates on their level of integrity, and they're willing to wait and see if someone's actions will eventually align with their words. But this patience, it's exactly what gets them betrayed. The wrong people see this as an open invitation to take advantage. They think, he let it slide once, he'll let it slide again. They mistake the Sigma's tolerance for foolishness, pushing boundaries little by little, testing just how far they can go before there are consequences. They cancel plans last minute, make empty promises, subtly undermine him, all while assuming the Sigma will always be there, quietly observing, but never reacting. But what these people fail to realize is that Sigma males don't warn before they walk away. They don't announce their disappointment or issue ultimatums. They just let the betrayals pile up until one day they're done. And when they're done forever. No explanations, no arguments, no second chances, just a clean surgical removal from their life, like deleting a useless file. And that's what stings the most. The manipulator assumed they had an unlimited past to push boundaries, but instead they ended up losing someone who actually gave them more patience than they ever deserved. By the time they realized the Sigma was their rarest and most understanding connection, it's too late. The door is locked, the bridge is burned, and the Sigma, he's already moved on, unbothered and completely indifferent. Number 5, they don't need people, which makes them easy to discard. Most betrayals come with a sense of guilt. People hesitate before backstabbing someone who needs them, someone who would crumble without their support. But Sigma males, they don't give anyone that power. They're self-sufficient to the core, capable of standing alone with or without the people in their lives. And ironically, that is exactly why they are so easily discarded. A manipulator weighs the cost of betrayal. If turning on someone will create drama, backlash, or emotional fallout, they think twice. But with a Sigma, there's no such risk. They think, he doesn't need me, he doesn't rely on me emotionally, financially, or socially. So what does it matter if I betray him? There's no meltdown, no public humiliation, no desperate attempts to hold on to the relationship, just eerie, unshaken calm. And that's where the real damage happens. Because the betrayal isn't just about losing a connection, it's about realizing the Sigma never needed them to begin with. The backstabber thought they had some level of importance, that they mattered in the Sigma's life. But when the betrayal is met with silence, with indifference, it forces them to ask the one question they weren't prepared for. Did I ever matter at all? Sigma males don't do grand gestures of revenge, but they don't do second chances either. Once they're betrayed, they don't fight for closure. They don't demand explanations. They just walk away like the person never existed. And that's the cruelest punishment of all. The backstabber moves on, thinking they got away with it, only to realize later that losing a Sigma was the biggest mistake they ever made. Because finding someone who doesn't need you but chooses you, that's rare. And once you lose that, you never get it back. Number 6, they don't expose their enemies, so enemies move freely. When someone betrays an alpha, the fallout is loud and messy. The alpha will make sure everyone knows what happened, turning the betrayer into a social outcast. Betas, they'll cry about it to everyone who will listen, turning it into a never-ending pity party. But Sigma males, they don't waste a second exposing their enemies. They don't broadcast the betrayal, don't rally allies for revenge, don't even bother warning others. And because of that, the betrayer walks away thinking they won. But here's what these snakes don't realize. When a Sigma stays quiet, it's not because he's weak, it's because he sees no value in the fight. He knows that exposing a betrayer is pointless. The kind of person who stabs others in the back will always eventually stab the wrong person. The Sigma doesn't have to ruin them. Their own nature will do that for them. In the meantime, the betrayer moves freely, thinking they escaped consequences. They betray others, lie, manipulate, and keep climbing, until one day, their past catches up. And when it does, the Sigma won't even blink. He won't say, "I told you so." He won't even acknowledge their downfall. He'll just keep living his life, completely unfazed. That's what makes Sigma males so unsettling to those who cross them. They expect a fight, a reaction, something to prove that their betrayal had an impact. Instead, they get silence, indifference, a realization that they were never significant enough to warrant revenge. And that, more than anything, is what makes them lose sleep at night. Number 7, they never pretend to be something they're not, which makes fake people uncomfortable. The world thrives on pretense. Social status, corporate politics, even friendships. So much of it is just people wearing masks, saying what they don't mean, pretending to be things they're not. And most people go along with it because that's the game. But Sigma males, they refuse to play. They don't adjust their personality to fit a crowd, don't fake enthusiasm, and definitely don't stroke egos just to keep the peace. They are exactly who they are, no filters, no performance. And for people who rely on fakery, that's terrifying. A Sigma's presence alone is enough to make pretenders uncomfortable. He doesn't call them out directly, he doesn't have to. His mere existence is a silent reminder of what they're lacking. Authenticity. The way he moves, the way he speaks, the way he simply doesn't care about impressing anyone. It shines a spotlight on their own insecurity. And insecure people hate being exposed, even when it's unintentional. At first, they might try to bring the Sigma down to their level, encouraging him to play along, to lighten up and follow the script like everyone else. But when that fails, resentment creeps in. They start seeing him as a problem, a disruptor, someone who refuses to validate their illusions, and when people feel threatened, they turn hostile. That's why fake people eventually betray Sigmas. Not because the Sigma did anything wrong, but because his existence made them face something they didn't want to admit. Deep down, they are frauds. They might not even realize it themselves, but the more time they spend around him, the more uneasy they become. So instead of confronting their own insecurities, they do the easier thing. They turn against him, they spread rumors, create drama, or simply cut him off, thinking that without him around, they won't have to feel so exposed. But here's the kicker. None of this ever phases the Sigma. He doesn't need their validation, doesn't rely on fake friendships, and definitely doesn't care about their social games. So while they scramble to protect their fragile personas, he just keeps doing what he's always done, living life on his terms, unbothered and completely real. Number 8, they operate outside the system, so the system turns against them. Society loves order, it loves predictability, hierarchy, and people who stay in their assigned roles. Alphas lead, betas follow, and the rest fall somewhere in between. But Sigma males, they don't fit into this structure. They move on their own terms, rejecting authority, ignoring social expectations, and refusing to be controlled. And that makes them a problem, not just for institutions, but for individuals who depend on the system to maintain their own sense of power. At first, people are intrigued by the Sigma. He doesn't seek approval, yet he commands respect. He doesn't follow trends, yet he somehow stays ahead. He doesn't chase leadership, yet people naturally gravitate toward him. This disrupts the entire order. The alpha resents him because he's competition without even trying. The beta resents him because he refuses to validate their need for hierarchy. And those who thrive on the system's structure, they see him as dangerous, because if someone can succeed without playing by the rules, then maybe the rules were never real to begin with. This is why, sooner or later, the system always turns against the Sigma. Institutions reject them because they won't submit. Corporate environments push them out because they won't engage in empty politics. Social circles freeze them out because they refuse to conform. Even close friends who once admired their independence may eventually resent them, because deep down they envy the freedom the Sigma possesses. And when people can't control something, their instinct is to eliminate it. So betrayal comes in different forms. Sometimes it's subtle, being overlooked for opportunities, excluded from gatherings, or dismissed as too difficult. Other times it's blatant, false accusations, sabotage, or direct attempts to bring them down. The worst part? The Sigma sees it all coming. He knows the system will never embrace someone it can't control, and yet he remains unshaken. He doesn't beg for acceptance, doesn't fight for a place in a structure he never wanted to be part of. He simply walks away, leaving the system to destroy itself while he continues to thrive outside of it like he always has. Number 9, they make their betrayers irrelevant. Betraying a Sigma male might feel like a victory at first. The backstabber might expect drama, retaliation, or at the very least a reaction, but what they get instead is nothing. No anger, no confrontation, just silence. And that's what makes it brutal. Sigma males don't waste time on revenge because they don't need to. The moment someone betrays them, they cut ties like flipping a switch. No second chances, no drawn-out explanations, just complete permanent indifference. And for the betrayer, that's worse than any payback they could have imagined. Because if there's one thing a manipulator can't stand, it's realizing they never actually mattered. At first, they might assume the Sigma is just processing the betrayal, that he'll come back eventually. But as time passes, it sinks in. He's gone for good. No texts, no calls, not even a passive-aggressive social media post. It's as if they never existed. And that's where the real punishment begins. Because while they sit there obsessing over the silence, the Sigma, he's already moved on, thriving, succeeding, completely unaffected. This is why betraying a Sigma male is a losing game. Most people, when betrayed, spiral into emotional chaos. They rant, they seek closure, they dwell. But a Sigma, he simply erases the person from his life. And that, more than anything, is what destroys the betrayer in the end, not the loss of the friendship, not the guilt, but the cold, undeniable fact that they were never as important as they thought they were. Number 10, they don't conform, which breeds quiet resentment. Most people claim they admire independence until they meet someone who actually embodies it. Sigma males don't conform, don't follow trends, and don't seek validation. They move through life on their own terms, answering to no one. And while people might say they respect that, deep down it unsettles them. Why? Because it reminds them of their own limitations. At first, the admiration is genuine. They're drawn to the Sigma's self-sufficiency, his ability to operate outside the system without fear. But over time, that admiration turns into something darker, envy. They start questioning their own choices, wondering why they spent years following rules and chasing approval when this guy just does whatever he wants and still wins. And instead of confronting those feelings, they direct that resentment at him. It starts subtly. Passive-aggressive comments, downplaying his achievements, small digs disguised as jokes. They tell themselves it's harmless, that the Sigma needs to be humbled. But when that doesn't shake him, the resentment grows. They start looking for ways to bring him down, to remind him that nobody is truly above the system. And before they even realize what they're doing, betrayal becomes their weapon of choice. Maybe it's spreading rumors, sabotaging an opportunity, or turning others against him. The method doesn't matter. What matters is the motive, punishment. They want to prove that the Sigma isn't as untouchable as he seems, that he needs to play by the same rules as everyone else. But here's where they miscalculate. The Sigma doesn't care. He spent his entire life moving solo, and betrayal is just another reminder of why he never depended on anyone in the first place. So while the betrayer waits for some kind of reaction, the Sigma simply walks away. No anger, no fight, just a quiet, effortless removal. And that's when it hits them. They didn't put him in his place. He just reminded them that he never had one among them to begin with. In the end, betraying a Sigma male isn't a victory, it's a miscalculation. They don't break down, they don't seek revenge, and they don't waste time mourning lost connections. They simply erase the betrayer from their life as if they never existed. And that's the real punishment, being reduced to nothing more than a lesson learned and a mistake never repeated. People think betrayal is about power, about proving dominance over someone who trusted them. But when you betray a Sigma, all you prove is that you were never worthy of their trust to begin with. They move on, unaffected, while the betrayer eventually realizes what they lost. A rare, self-sufficient and brutally honest individual who never needed them, but once chose to let them in. And when that door closes, it never reopens. Sigma males don't fear loneliness, they embrace it. So when someone betrays them, it doesn't shatter them, it just reinforces why they've always been selective about who they trust. And while the betrayer scrambles to find new people to manipulate, the Sigma, he's already miles ahead, thriving in his own world, where snakes are spotted early, dealt with swiftly, and left behind without a second thought. If this hit home, then you already know. Sigma males move differently. They see what others miss, walk away from what no longer serves them, and thrive in silence while everyone else scrambles for validation. And if you're the kind of person who values raw truth over sugar-coated nonsense, then this is your space. Hit that subscribe button and join a community that actually gets it. No fluff, no cliches. Just sharp, brutally honest insights that keep you ahead of the game. Stay sharp, stay untouchable, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now and see you in the next video.